Posted me on LinkedIn at the time because the selling of engine and parts, it's purely B2B business. I used LinkedIn a lot for business development, so I would chat constantly.
Everybody needs to listen to this. Business development, LinkedIn, please.
B2B, LinkedIn, B2C, not always, right?
Welcome to the Reza Naqvi Podcast.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Reza Naqvi Podcast. Well, today we'll be shooting our first episode with someone very special, somebody who started their career from aircraft spare parts, going into brokerage, and finally in the operator's seat. Anna's journey is nothing short than remarkable, navigating and making a career out of what she's done. So we'll dive into it. Welcome, Anna, to the Reza Naqvi Podcast, please. Stage is yours.
Thank you for having me today. That's the first podcast for me, so I'm a bit nervous, but will be happy to share the stories from business aviation with you.
Well, what really interests me about your journey is, was aviation always planned? How did you get into spare parts? And then from spare parts, that transition into brokerage, and then eventually managing an aircraft, the operator side. So you've seen both sides, where brokers come to you for the aircraft, and then the side where you are the asset manager itself. Tell me more about that. How did that transition happen? And prior to that, what made you get into aviation to begin with?
Well, yeah, I've seen industry from all the perspective, I feel, by now. Well, what about getting into aviation? I feel that for many people in the industry, it was a lucky chance because I've met people from different backgrounds, IT, music, sport, and all of them at some point got into the industry, fell in love with it, and stayed for years. So I would say the same happened with me. I graduated from University of Queensland. I did my master's in economics, and cargo airline was my first job. And with the first job, you probably don't think that much ahead. I always loved aviation. It was something attractive to me. I thought that flying is romantic, but I did not plan career that far ahead. So I just decided to try it. And since then, I'm in love with it. So I'm staying in the industry.
Tell me more about when you said you started cargo airlines. So from cargo airlines, what were you doing there? And then how did you get into spare parts? Is that not very technical?
It is very technical, and I'm very far from the engineer. I still, even even after doing this job for some time, well, I was always on the commercial side, and with spare parts, it was complete enterprise. I happened to be in Dubai, and a very good friend of mine who used to live in the US was in Dubai as well. So he gave me a call and he told me, Anna, why don't you come to the MRO conference? So that's how it started. We basically met at the MRO conference in Dubai, and there was my friend and his two colleagues. He was looking to relocate from the US and start business here in the UAE. And this conference was like the first step for him. So I asked him like, what are we doing at the conference? What is the final goal? And
Mm.
at the time, they were looking to sell the 7B engine. So at that time, I had no idea about technical part. I just opened the mini pack and I see the like HPT, LPT module, and the amount of cycles left. So Arthur told me, my friend, that's what you should be looking at, the amount of cycles left and the origin of the engine, who last operated the engine. And we went from there. At the conference, I was just talking to people. And by the end of the conference, I already got so much into it. So we just continued, I would say.
Did you ever feel overwhelmed with all, because it seems like, there's so much information to take in, similar to what happened to me, obviously, coming from a non-aviation background. So it was like information overload.
It was. It was at some point. However, I would say that I was still doing commercial jobs, so I would not. I was not on the technical side, and while we would have the commercial conversation, it was kind of fun to just know the basic,
Basics. All
basics.
right.
Yes.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
However, I was learning by myself. I would read about quick exchange compartments. I would try to memorize the types of parts and types of engine as well, which engine is fit for which aircraft, but that's still the basic
Still can't
parts.
understand them. We get a lot of requests. I'm sure you understand that. We get a lot of requests for spare parts still. And I still can't get my head around different engine types and spare parts and stuff. I do have packing lists and I look at them and I'm just happy with that. W- Tell us more about, so you're selling aircraft spare parts and then one fine day you go to the Jetex FBO. What do you remember about that entire meeting and that experience of obviously going there to that terminal? Tell us.
I remember how it started. I remember that you, Reza, you texted me on LinkedIn at the time because the selling of engine and parts, it's purely B2B business. I used LinkedIn a lot for business development, so I would chat constantly.
Everybody needs to listen to this. Business development, LinkedIn. Please.
B2B, LinkedIn, B2C, not always, right? So yeah, I would use LinkedIn a lot, and one day, one lucky day, you messaged me on LinkedIn, and I think you was looking for a certain part, but at the moment I cannot remember which one. I think it was
HPT blade.
yes, probably,
Yes.
probably it
Helicopter
was.
blades.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then we agreed to meet with you, and you told me I work for Jetex. Why don't I show you the FBO as well? And I was interested because I never been exposed to private aviation side. We did not even do the spare parts for private jets.
Right.
So I did not work with private aviation at all, and I was very intrigued to see the FBO. And what I remember, I was amazed by the glamorous,
It is a beautiful
glamorous.
FBO, yes. I do agree. It is a beautiful FBO indeed. What was the impression of that first visit? Excuse me, where you see the private jet side from the technical side, you're suddenly now getting hooked onto the private jet side, the more, how can I say, the luxury side of aviation.
Yes.
So initially, obviously, like what we do as brokering, it's not very luxurious, or spare parts sales. It's all something that goes on behind the scenes. So how was that? What did you feel that? Do you want to start moving into private aviation?
Well, as every lady, I'm a little bit seduced by luxury, right?
Fair enough.
But yeah, it was an interesting experience. When I saw the FBO and you told me a bit more about the private jet charters, about the business aviation, I realized that it's interesting industry. And that moment, I started thinking about it. Why don't I try myself there? And then stars just aligned because my friend decided to come back to the US. And for me, working in the US was not an option. So I decided to stay in Dubai. And that's when I realized, why don't I try private aviation?
Fair enough. And then how was your journey into private aviation? What did you start with? You started with brokering.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell us more how that happened.
I started with Chapman Freeborn.
Tell us more about like, who is Chapman.
Oh,
We know of course, but if in layman's terms, so that people understand, there are various companies, how Chapman stands out, who they are, what they do.
Chapman Freeborn is one of the oldest and well-established brokerage companies. Started back in, if I'm not mistaken, it was 70s in the UK, right? By Chapman and Freeborn.
Right.
And now Chapman Freeborn are brokers who have cargo brokerage
Right.
and a VIP brokerage. So I I'm not sure exact how I've made this choice exactly because that time I was not very familiar. However, when I read about the story of the
You just
company,
decided.
Yeah, and also it came to my attention as part of Avia Solution Group, the
Yes,
biggest ACMI provider worldwide. So
they
I
are.
was thinking that's a great opportunity to take.
Absolutely.
And that's how it started with interview with Chapman and the job offer.
So what happens is usually people see in private aviation, since you've been doing it already, you understand. What is the perception of people? Is it just the champagne? Is it just the leather seats? Is it just the luxury side of things? Tell us more about the high pressure environment, which go the things that go behind the scenes of a charter booking.
Well, from a broker perspective, I would say yes, that's a high-paced environment, especially in the Middle East, where a client expect you to act instantly, and sometimes they would request aircraft in 4 hours.
Is that possible?
It can be possible if we obtain permits on time, if we find the right aircraft which is already at the airport from
Fair.
which they're looking to depart. There are a lot of factors. So
Absolutely.
sometimes you need to manage the client expectations. However, yes, in private aviation, you need to make decision fast.
Absolutely. I understand that. But for example, when you get any let's talk about one of the easiest clients you've ever faced. Obviously, you don't need to take any names naturally, but an easy flight and a more complicated flight, which you would like to talk about, where we had to really meet client expectations with sometimes unrealistic timelines. Some clients come with those, sometimes with more realistic timelines. How do you deal with if somebody comes to you and says, they want to fly to a country where the lead time of permits is 3 days?
Or 1 week, like Singapore, for example, right?
Yeah, I think even South Africa, 7 days.
Mm,
Is it? There's a lead time for permits.
yes, I think so. Mhm. So
How
what?
would you, if they really really need to move, how would you sort of handle that?
Well, I
Do
would.
we politely decline sometimes?
Oh, we never
We
decline.
never
We
decline.
never decline.
All right. So how do we
We do not say no to a client, right? We explain to the client, look, the permit in this country may take time. So, for example, if he is looking to fly to South Africa, then he should either be
assist us maybe?
flexible with the assist,
Or
of
assist,
course, if
yes.
he has any influence within the aviation aviation authorities in
Fair.
this country. It's great if he can assist. Otherwise, being flexible with the schedule helps, or alternative routing.
All right. So you did brokerage for I think almost 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. That's a long time, all right, for any job for that matter. And you understood the ins and outs of aircrafts and dealing with all different types of clients and everybody. What made you do the switch from the broker side finally to the operator side? And I still remember it was a very interesting morning because I sent out a message and you replied. And I was like, wait a minute. So, well, what just happened? And then obviously it was all over LinkedIn and naturally got updated. So that was very, very interesting. And I would love to congratulate you again. Obviously, being heading an entire region as being VP, I'm sure it's not easy. And you've had that journey. So you've seen the phases from just doing spare parts sales to brokerage to VP. Tell me, what does it look like in a day? Let's talk about the first day when you've taken up all the responsibility as a VP. What was it like?
Well, speaking about the journey, yes, the brokerage experience actually helped a lot. And while I was a broker, of course, I had some good repetitive clients, successful, I would say, career due to them. And however, I was always thinking that it would be nice to have more control over the operational side, because as a broker you're never in control of the service. You are advisor to a client, and you are intermediary between operator and the client, so you can advise the client who is the best operator. However, you don't really control the operational part. And I was always thinking that it must be very interesting to be in control.
Have you ever come across a situation where your operational expertise of spare parts and everything facing an AOG situation or a technical issue situation, or just in general, stepping in to assist the operator uh, with any technical issues with landing permits or any issue which they faced where you've had to be hands on, being thoroughly involved in a flight?
Um, as a broker, I would say I would be involved with permits, yes, because I sometimes have connections with CA especially um, in certain countries, not everywhere, but
That's very interesting.
in some of them, yes. So I can try assist with landing permit. However, with the technical stuff like the spare parts, of course, not that much. So we would rely on the operator for that. But as a broker, you try to assist sometimes with permit. You can assist with catering order. You can assist with ground transportation. You can assist with FBO arrangement. You can assist with, I would say, service part of the flight.
Fair enough. Understood. Since you transition into leadership role after going through the grind over the years, you need to take decisions. It's all about, see, at the top, well, life in general is all about taking decisions, but when you are in a position of authority, not all your decisions are liked by everybody,
Yeah.
right? And naturally, at that position, you have to take fast-paced, cutthroat decisions. I'm sure not every decision is easy. How do you sort of deal with? Do you have a diplomatic approach? Would you like to advise somebody in a leadership role that are you? Some people can be impatient. Some people can be very, very patient. How do you go around when you come across such a situation where you have to step down, put your foot down and take a decision?
Well, I think decisions should not necessarily be liked. However, they should be commercially efficient, right? So
Nice.
you should always see what would be the best for the company in this exact situation, even if the situation is complicated. There is always the best way out, and you're just trying to find this way.
Have you ever come across a client where you've actually had to walk away from a deal, and uh, it can sometimes come to difficult conversations with certain clients? It can be sometimes very easy conversations. Have you ever had to sort of politely decline and be like, I'd rather not involve or indulge in this, and you've walked away from a deal?
Sometimes it worth walking away from the deal if it is a commercially does not make sense. For example, my schedule changed and now I have positioning for the flight, which is 9 hours with a fuel stop. So maybe that flight would not. But however, if it's confirmed, it's confirmed. We always fulfill our obligations. But if the deal is just under discussions, I just wait the situation and. I always try to do the best I can. However, for the
It should
of,
be commercially viable.
of course,
Commercially viable if it's making sense. If it's not making sense, then naturally you have to
yeah.
politely decline. I
Or
understand.
maybe it's too complicated from operational side because there are certain technical airports where, for example, we are not sure if we can land, or maybe there is restriction for the temperature.
I really wanted to ask you this question because you operate 737-500s, right? Those are beautiful aircrafts. How do you deal with certain brokers? I really wanted to touch this point who sell the aircraft for a mission where the airport has technical restraints and cannot handle an aircraft. How do you deal with such?
Like the category P, Bhutan, for example.
Yes, Bhutan is very, very interesting. Paro, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I do not quote such flights. If I receive request, I just straight away say, sorry, we do not have suitable aircraft to operate this flight because if we cannot operate, we cannot operate. There is nothing from my side I can do with it.
There's a few myths about private aviation. People usually ask, people want to know. Let's start with empty legs. How feasible and how realistic or how available is an empty leg? Because what I understand from an empty leg is that we don't have much control. We are relying on the main consumer on his schedule. How many empty legs would actually sell if there are in the market? What is the ratio of conversion?
Um, I would say for my aircrafts, it's less than for smaller jets
Fair.
because for my aircrafts, the request for the empty leg, it's not a common thing because the group of
Yes,
people
naturally.
traveling with the empty leg, they should, as you mentioned, be flexible for the schedule of the empty leg, and it's not rarely happens. And that's what clients not always understand, that the empty leg, it's not a common way to get a good deal for the flight. It's something when the
It's like
star
it's like you
align.
have to be ready on standby
Yeah,
immediately.
it's sometimes it happens. Sometimes, especially if I would have the empty leg from Middle East to Europe, I would even advertise this empty leg to sell it
Absolutely.
because it's a ferry flight. Why don't I adjust, optimize the cost by selling this empty leg? However, it also we should also take into account that the origin of the flight may be a bit different than origin of the empty leg. So I would do a bit of positioning, then I would fly to Europe. So it still would not be like half the price. Maybe it would be 30-40% discount, right, from a regular flight. However, I support the idea of selling empty leg because this is cost optimization, right?
Absolutely.
However, at the same time, it's good to manage the client expectation because his flight is fully depend on the original flights
On the
book.
original flight. Absolutely. You've been obviously working across regions. You have clients from all over the world. What region is more exciting right now? Middle East. Within the Middle East, let's talk about, since we're based in the UAE. How have you seen the UAE market develop over the past 3 years post COVID? Has there been any trend change? I think the consumer is slowly becoming more aware, or I think some of them are aware naturally. However, some of them have misinformation rather due to unethical brokers. Is that's the only way I can put it, because they provide a lot of misinformation to the end customer. And obviously people are getting wealthy. They are looking into having a taste of private aviation. So how would you see, has there been a trend change between the clients, and naturally, which is a more exciting region within the Middle East? What would you choose to work in?
Hard to pick. When we are talking about United Arab Emirates, I feel that over the last few years, it attracted a huge amount of investments, and expats as well are moving to Dubai, Abu
Yes.
Dhabi to either start a business or yeah, mostly or develop their career further. So I believe that for the private jets and group charters as well, the demand is growing in the middle in United Arab Emirates. However, Saudi market is booming as well.
Saudi is growing as well.
I think that also due to investment being
Brought in.
brought
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
to Saudi Arabia together with infrastructure projects like Alula and Neom,
Yes.
and also investments which they make in sport industry because my group charters it's either the government or the sport,
Fair.
my main clientele. So Saudi Arabia is very interesting because it's because the country is bigger, so there is a huge a huge demand for domestic flights within Saudi Arabia, for
And I
example.
think they recently
Mhm.
removed the cabotage.
Yes, they
Yes.
removed cabotage in May, which made it much easier for us to operate domestic flights. Now we
Correct.
do not face any issues with permits, and we can arrange flight within, I would say, 24 hours to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Saudi Arabian market is of a great interest to us due to government flights, due to sports flights, Saudi Pro League.
Their league is doing so. Indeed, understood. In all of this high pressure, always it's aviation 24/7. You're sort of around the clock. You travel a lot due to work. What does Anna like to do beyond aviation? You said you like sports, art. How does that work life balance for especially a working lady? That's something very interesting. How do you manage to balance all of that for women who are looking to work, looking to get into aviation? What would you advise them? How you balance it? Do you have a certain approach to work and balancing life and your passions and whatever things you like to follow, your sports, your art, your gym, etc.?
Yes, the balance, of course, is very important. In my case, I think it's still a little bit imbalanced as I'm focusing mostly on work at the moment. I love sport, I love art. Whenever I would have free time, I would play tennis, run, however, it does not happen often.
I totally understand that. What advice would you give, let's say, to your younger self? Um, would you have liked to do anything differently
Mm,
if you look back, or you feel that no, well, this is surely my opinion that I feel that we are where we are because thanks to all the decisions we make. You know, so do you say the same, or if you look back, you go like, no, possibly I could, tweak something.
mm, I think the best advice I could give myself in the past, and maybe some ladies looking to get into aviation now, I would say it's to focus and to stand on business because when you are young, it feels like opportunities are unlimited and you want to try this, that. However, for career to progress and for anything to progress in life, it's very important to focus sometimes and take it step by step. No matter how complicated it feels, you just need to do it every day and it will get better.
Consistency, very nice. So you seem like a very ambitious person, and without ambition, nobody can reach as far as you have. And there's obviously people don't realize the hard work that has gone behind all of that. The sleepless nights and running around of in a flight 24/7, early morning, late evenings, etc. Do you picture yourself just in aviation even in the future, or do you feel that this is something nice which you have passion for at the moment, and eventually maybe in the future something away from aviation? I don't know, arts, could be anything.
Mm, I would say I will stay in the aviation. I'm excited to see what next year's what's gonna happen in the next few years. I will stay till 2030 for the World Cup in Saudi. My aircraft should be there, doing the charters.
That would be very, very nice. Well, at this note, I would like to thank you for being at the Reza Naqvi podcast. Clearly, it shows that your journey, starting from something very, very not related to the private aviation side, doing something spare parts, and then one fine day, sort of deciding that, oh, you know what, I need to explore my abilities further. This shows that if you put your mind to it and you have passion, you have intention, and you action, clearly you can reach good heights. Thank you so much, Anna. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Reza. That was my pleasure.
Appreciate it.